Good evening, Chair Williams. This is Greg from the Clerk's Office. How are you tonight?
I am doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing great. So if it pleases, we do have a quorum. What we can do, if you want to call the meeting to order, I can call roll, make the announcements, and then we can go move on to introductions and all that stuff, if that pleases the council.
Okay, you said now you'd like to do what? Let me turn my volume up. I'm sorry.
I just need you to call the meeting to order, and then I will call the roll and make the announcement on how to call in for public comment. And then we can move forward with introductions and the items that are on the agenda.
Okay, and I'm going to do the introductory script or no?
You can, yeah. I would just like to get the roll called and the public comment stuff done, and then you can do your introductory script, and then we can move on to the actual items.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay. Okay, so if you could call the meeting to order, it is 6:42.
All right, okay, yes. This is Chairperson Stephanie Williams, and I'm now calling the meeting to order.
Okay, I will go ahead and call the roll. Member Jaramillo. Sorry, Member Jaramillo?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Member Lucy?
Here.
Member Santana Sanchez?
Here.
And Chair Williams?
Here.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and read the announcement. This meeting is live streamed and temporarily closed to in-person public participation. The clerk's office is in the process of hosting hybrid public meetings that will provide board members and members of the public with the option to participate in the meeting either in person or remotely. We thank you for your patience and support. To make a verbal comment at this evening's meeting, dial 916-875-2501 to provide your contact information. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be contacted by phone and transferred into the meeting to make their public comment. Written comments, of course, are always accepted. You can send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net. That's a boardclerk@saccounty.net. Your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. That does it for the clerk's statement.
All right, thank you. All right. Well, welcome to tonight's meeting, and thank you everyone for coming. My name is Stephanie Williams, and I'm the chairperson for the South Sacramento Community Planning Advisory Council, also known as the South Sacramento Cpac. Just a little bit of information on the Cpac. The Cpac members are volunteer citizens appointed by the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. The council shall be advisory only to county agencies. The purpose of the Cpac is to encourage citizen participation in the planning process, provide local forum to develop and propose community goals and objectives, to serve as a local sounding board for new proposals offered by the county staff and others, and to assist the county planning agencies and board of supervisors in carrying out approved community plans and the county's general plan. The function of the Cpac may include updating community goals and plans, developing and proposing community improvement programs, review and comment upon proposed amendments to the general plan, specific plans, zoning changes, conditional use permits, and related zoning matters. Advisory recommendations are forwarded to the hearing bodies, including the zoning administrator, the subdivision review committee, the county planning commission, and board of supervisors. Our meetings are always open to the public and are listed in your local neighborhood newspapers and posted at libraries and meeting sites. Courtesy notices are mailed to property owners within 500 feet of the proposed project based upon the address of record and are posted on the county's website. And so we're just going to take a moment just to do introductions of the Cpac staff and then also any planning representatives and other representatives that may be here. So I'd like to open that up.
Chair Williams, this is Greg from the clerk's office. If I could jump in real quick. It looks like Member Lambert has joined. Member Lambert, you are on the call, correct? Mr. Lambert? I see his name. I don't hear his voice.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Lambert, are you there? Okay, well, I'm going to note on our roll call sheet that he is present. We will see if there's a audio problem with his connection. So I'm sorry, go ahead. You can move forward with your introductions.
Okay, thank you. So the CPAC members can introduce themselves, please.
This is member Burke Lucy.
Lourdes Santana Sanchez.
This is member Erica Jaramillo.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair Williams, I'm sorry to jump in again. Member Lambert, if you can hear us, you may need to leave the meeting and rejoin. That may be what's causing the issue of us not being able to hear you. So again, I'm sorry for jumping in, but just want to make sure we get everybody accounted for here.
Absolutely, thank you. Are there any other introductions, agency staff?
Good evening, Cpac members. This is Chris Pahuli, Principal Planner with the Planning and Environmental Review Division.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Rebecca True, Assistant Planner with Sacramento County.
All right. If that is everyone, and I think we will see if Member Lambert is able to, if you were able to work out that audio issue, I'd like to go ahead and call the first item.
Okay, the item 1 on your agenda this evening is Siemens Mobility. It is located at the west side of French Road, approximately 0.3 miles south of Florin Road in the South Sacramento community. The request is for a general plan amendment, zoning ordinance amendment, zoning ordinance amendment is here twice, and a community plan amendment and rezone.
Okay, good evening, Cpac members. This is Chris Pahuli once again. I am going to be providing you with the staff presentation on this item, introducing it. I know that there are applicant representatives on the line, and they can speak to the project in greater detail after I provide the introductory comments. So there is a presentation that it looks like the clerk of the board is bringing up. So if you can move to the second slide. So just by way of background and to orient the CPAC to this particular site, so the request that is, or the application that has been filed is for 3 parcels totaling nearly 4 acres on French Road. These are the 3 parcels highlighted in yellow. These properties are south of Florin Road and adjacent to the Siemens Mobility Campus. Currently, the properties are being used for temporary parking and storage operations by Siemens. There is, as you can see on this aerial, industrial properties surrounding this and single-family residential to the east on French Road. Next slide, please. So the 3 properties here are shown in red, and just to kind of indicate, part of the request is to address some of the overlay zones that are that these properties are subject to. So one of the parcels, the one that is furthest north is at 7356 French Road, is included in the Old Florintown Special Planning Area. And within that SPA, it has a mixed-use residential designation to it. The 2 properties to the south, you can kind of almost make out the black crosshatch on the western part of those 2 parcels at 7372 and 7382 French Road. Both of those properties are included in the South Sacramento Industrial Neighborhood Preservation Area, and they have an RD2 or residential zoning designation for them. As I mentioned before, there is single-family residential surrounding the property, but also the industrial uses west and north of the site. Next slide, please. A little bit of background, a recent history with the properties. I think many Cpac members know that there was a interim urgency ordinance that allowed for certain temporary uses of properties due to the impacts of the pandemic, and the Board of Supervisors adopted that interim ordinance in May of 2020. And as part of that ordinance, they actually took action on these particular properties and allowed for the temporary use of those properties for Siemens use, and allowed for those properties to be used for parking, as well as some laydown space to be able to handle overflow storage needs of the business. Next slide, please. So as the clerk of the board started to outline, there are multiple entitlements that are requested here as part of the application that was filed. So there is a general plan amendment. So a portion of the site is currently designated as medium density residential, and there is also nearly 2 acres that is designated as low density residential. So the 1.77 acres is that most northern parcel. The 1.95 acres are the 2 parcels to the south. Those would all be under the request changed in the general plan to a designation of intensive industrial. The reason there are 2 zoning ordinance amendment requests is the first is to remove that 1.77 acre parcel, that one to the most northern portion, from the old Florentown SPA, to remove it from the old Florentown SPA. And then the second component to that zoning ordinance amendment is to remove the 2 other parcels from the South Sac Industrial NPA. There would also be a community plan amendment to change the designation for that entire 3.72 acre subject area from residential 2 to industrial office park. And then lastly, there is a rezone request to rezone the old Florentown SPA and the RD2 sites to a light industrial M1 zoning district. Next slide, please. The next couple of exhibits are included in the application that was filed. They're a little bit difficult to read, so I'll go through them pretty quickly, but this would be the general plan amendment exhibit. Just visually shows what I was explaining about the change in the designations. Next slide, please. This is the community plan exhibit. Also just graphically or visually shows what we were talking about earlier. Next slide. And then lastly, this is the rezone exhibit, which again shows the change to an M1 designation. Next slide, please. So a couple of points that I think I've made as we've talked about this, or as I've walked through the various slides, but the request from Siemens representatives is to remove the 3 parcels from either the old Florentown special planning area or from the South Sac industrial neighborhood preservation area, and to change those designations and zoning designation to industrial, to allow for industrial uses on those 3 properties. Not part of this request is any development plans for the site. So the request is just to, again, handle the general plan amendment, the rezone, and the community plan amendments. But the development plans for the site are not included. So there isn't a design review, for example, with this package. However, the applicant has indicated that they intend for the use of the property to be employee parking and storage. And we can hear a little bit more from the applicant team about their plans for the site later. Our planning staff, have not yet made a determination on the environmental document that will be prepared for this request. We are currently awaiting some technical studies to be able to definitively make that determination about the level of document that will be required to support this request. Next slide. And so that concludes staff remarks for this this project. I'm happy to answer questions that you might have at this point for staff. And if there aren't any, we can head into the applicant remarks.
Chair Williams, this is Greg from the clerk's office. I'm going to just verify that Mr. Lambert can hear us before we move on, if that's okay.
Okay, absolutely.
Mr. Lambert, it's Greg from the clerk's office. Can you hear us? Mr. Lambert, are you there? Okay, we are. Let's see.
You may have to call in.
Yeah, Mr. Lambert, if you can hear us, that may be the best way around this at this point would be you can still view what's being presented on your computer, but calling in, that way we could have audio connection with you. I apologize for the delays here, but we want to make sure everybody can speak their mind. So that's it for the clerk's end right now.
Okay. All right, thank you. Are there any questions from Cpac members?
Lourdes Santana Sanchez, I have no questions at this time.
I'd like to hear from the applicant.
All right.
Member Lucy.
Member Erica, no questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Okay, if we can proceed with the applicant.
Yes, this is Greg Thatch. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. This is Greg Thatch, and I'm here tonight representing Siemens Mobility. Let me introduce a few folks who are also on the line tonight. We have Gary O'Brien, who is head of real estate for Siemens Mobility in the Americas. It's late for him. He's coming to us from New York. We also have Shiva Tubari, who handles real estate locally for Siemens. And we have our civil engineer, Jennifer Shively, here to answer any questions that the council may have. Chris said he was just going to give you general information, but he said it all. I think he described well the requests that are before the county. Siemens is a growing business. You may have read in the paper many things about them, providing light rail cars here in Sacramento and many other places. And this is simply to take the temporary use that has been granted by the Board of Supervisors, make it permanent, and put permanent improvements in. We will come back with a development plan after this, but those permanent improvements are going to include matching fencing, that'll include setbacks, landscaped areas, walls abutting the residential development, drainage that takes into consideration water quality, paving, and appropriate lighting. So all of that will come back, but that is the intended use of the property. Again, it's to use it pretty much exactly the way it's being used today. And I would answer any questions, and I said we have our team here who can also answer questions.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for that, for sharing that information. I have a question. You indicated that you will, that you plan on coming back and providing some additional information on the improvements. Is that correct?
There'll be another application filed.
Okay. Do we have a timeline for that?
Probably on the heels of this. We have the temporary uses granted through next June of 22. So
Okay,
we need to wrap this up by next June.
okay, so we, and then also, and part of kind of just, there was some references into the environmental impacts, but those are still under review.
Yes, the county has requested certain studies. Those studies were submitted in the last couple of days to the county. One is a cultural resources study conducted by an archaeologist. There were no findings here. The others deal with air quality and greenhouse gas, and those do not show impacts that are significant. So we believe that that will give staff everything they need to make that determination.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Chair Williams, I'm going to jump in real quick. I do see we have a phone number that has just joined our meeting that may be Mr. Lambert. So let me try and see. We just had someone join with the last four digits of 8391. Could you identify yourself, please? Right. Mr. Lambert, was that your voice I thought I heard there for a second? Can you hear me? In and out. Chair Williams, we've exhausted our capabilities as far on our end. We do have a quorum. We can move forward. I apologize for Mr. Lambert is coming in and out. So
Right, okay. Okay, thank you. Looks like he's left and maybe he'll try to join again. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll direct it back to Cpac members. So are there any questions or comments?
Member Erica Hadamio, no questions.
Member Santana Sanchez, I have no questions.
This is Member Lucy. I'd like to hear if the applicant has seen the public comments. I'd like to see what response they have to those public comments.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I've only seen one public comment. From Brewer, last name Brewer. We're going to reach out to them. I think there are always certain inherent issues when you have residential next to industrial, and Siemens definitely wants to be a good neighbor. And so we're going to reach out to them because we were concerned that they indicated that they had tried to contact Siemens without success. So we're going to make sure that contact is successful.
So can you clarify, obviously there was a video that shows activity at 8-something p.m. And the public commenter suggested that there may be activity going on 24 hours a day. Can you confirm whether that's the case or what is going on site?
Gary or Shiva, perhaps you can. I do not know the shifts that are worked.
Yeah, sure. Hi, this is Gary O'Brien, head of real estate for Siemens Mobility. First, let me say thank you to everyone for taking the time into hearing our application. We do appreciate it. As Mr. Thatch said, we certainly will reach out to this community member and listen to what happened. I have not seen the video, but I will take a look at it and understand. As far as activity is concerned, it's not 24 hours. No, 8:40 p.m. maybe something depending on the day. There may have been a truck that arrived late. I mean, I don't know the circumstances around this particular situation, but there's not a lot of industrial activity past early evening hours. So this may just be a one-off situation. I don't know.
Just from the video itself, it looks like there are at least 4 lights just in this narrow band of the video, kind of pointing in that direction. It seems like it's not ideal. I would consider that a concern. If there can be some kind of shielding of the lighting, I think that would be some topic of discussion. The applicant or the public commenter was requesting like a sound wall on their site. So I guess that's a question for county staff. Is that even a possibility for Siemens to entertain the idea of putting a sound wall on a site on the east side of French Road for this public commenter and or his neighbors? And if so, what height?
Yeah, so I mean, there will be discussion as we continue along with the project, especially as we look at any potential mitigation measures. At this point in time, I'm not thinking that there would be justification for a sound wall. But again, that would be something that would be worked out through this process. And
go ahead. I was just going to say that I did try to determine where their property was, and it appears to be directly across the street from the most northern lot of the 3 lots here. And so the council understands, because of the rules surrounding the temporary use permit, we cannot put permanent fencing in. That's why on that portion you're seeing the chain link fence. You cannot put permanent anything in under the temporary use permit, emergency use permit. So all of that will change, hopefully very soon. And a solid fencing will go in. The permanent lighting would go in that would be directed away from those houses. There'll be greater sound attenuation. There'll be landscaping. So the permanent improvements are quite different than what's there today.
Actually, the commenter was saying we want to be acknowledged and considered for a sound barrier wall on our yard.
I understand that. I'm not prepared to. We're not prepared to commit to that tonight. We are prepared to meet and to talk with this neighbor, but we are going to do things on this property that I think will improve their situation.
Okay. Chris, county staff, why would you say it's not likely feasible or warranted in this case? Too far away?
Yeah, to do an off-site sound wall, is that what the request would be? Yeah, I mean, typically we would be looking at impacts of the site itself, and if there is justification for a wall, it would be on the site in the area that was being impacted by the request.
I would think it would be easier to mitigate the noise closer to the not the point source, but the source that is affected, and that being the residences across the street. But I guess the main question is whether that's even feasible. But I guess I'm not getting a whole lot of clear answer on whether that's even a point of negotiation or discussion, I guess, when the two do talk.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that we're still early on in that in the process of evaluation, and as I mentioned, one method of conditioning would be because of the environmental impacts. And so, it's a bit premature to have the discussion about conditions of approval related to, or to discuss the mitigation measures when we're not exactly sure about the environmental document and its impacts at this point.
Speaking of which, I wound up downloading files from the actual planning portal, which I don't see on the actual agenda items. Trying to find that document again. Darn it. I think it was transportation impacts, and gosh, I need to find it now. Of course. Nope, nope. Nope. In everything but that. I'm a little confused. The northern parcel. When you look at three different documents or three different, maybe it's the general plan, the community plan, etc. The northern parcel is currently medium density residential, but it's also residential RD2, and then it's also mixed use residential. So is that just the overlapping general plan, community plan, etc.? Question for Chris, I suppose.
Yes. So I think what I had mentioned earlier is that there were a couple of different overlays here. So there's the general plan designation for the property. It's also located within the Old Florentown special planning area as well, all of which have, separate designations. So in the general plan, it is designated as medium density residential. And then in the community plan, it's zoned RD2. And then the zoning for the site is Old Florentown SPA with a mixed use residential zoning district designation. So there are a couple layers to the request and layers to the different designations for the property based on the planning document.
Okay. And now I'm seeing the document I found. It was the CEQA VMT analysis, local transportation analysis, LTA. Mm-hmm. So it's basically saying, as shown on the trip generation table, when compared to the current site, the proposed project would generate less than 1,000 daily trips, less than 100 trips during the AM/PM peak. But in this table, it's showing existing zoning and proposed zoning, and the existing zoning, it's saying it's RD20. And I don't see any RD20. So part of the justification here is that the numbers are going down from what's allowable with RD20 at 256 daily trips, and it's going down to 161. Anyway, I know this is getting into the details, but it just seems like I don't see any RD20 here.
Yeah, I suspect I can't say that I'm familiar with the document, but I suspect that with the mixed-use residential zoning designation in the SPA, I suspect that the property was analyzed as if it was a multifamily residential property, given that the zoning in the SPA allows for it. I don't know if anyone from the applicant team has more information, but I guess that's my thought about what that, or why that would be looking at an RD20 site.
Yeah, we have no information, Chris.
Okay.
Okay. And I also, let's see, this is another one I have to find again. Planning, nope. Sorry, bear with me. There it is. Okay, so in the general plan, it says within the industrial intensive land use category, a 10-acre minimum parcel size shall apply until the land use is zoned to an M1, M2, MP, or GC designation. So can you clarify, you talked about intensive industrial and or M1 designation, and or is this all because of this temporary COVID allowance that 10-acre minimum is not a requirement? Even though it's, yes, it is the general plan.
So I'm sorry, you have to do that one more time. I'm not looking at the documents that you're looking at. So what
I could give you the page number, but I assume you're not going to pull it up right now. But it's the land use element, and it's LU 56, page 64. And it's basically saying you need to maintain the viability of industrial areas and attract desirable industry to the area by creating a land supply with the following minimum parcel sizes. Within the industrial intensive land use category, a 10-acre minimum parcel size shall apply until the land is zoned to an M1, M2, MP, or GC designation.
Right.
So can you explain why that does not apply here?
Well, it seems that, again, not kind of going through and, we haven't completed our general plan consistency analysis, but I would say that just based on based on your read of it, it seems like this property does increase the size of, or the acreage of the properties, the industrial properties surrounding it, and it assists the current user of the property, Siemens Mobility, to expand their operations. I think an argument could be made that it would be consistent with that policy, given that the acreage, taken as a whole, is much greater than that smaller size parcel size that you had mentioned.
Can you explain the difference between industrial intensive and M1?
Well, those are two different things. Intensive industrial is a general plan designation, and an M1 is a zoning designation, right? So we have general plan designations that don't always match up, with our zoning code, and in this case, that those are consistent. Right, an intensive industrial general plan designation, the way that is implemented is through a M1 or an M2 zoning designation, which would be an industrial zone designation.
Okay.
Did that help, or does that make sense?
Yes, kind of apples and oranges kind of issue. I guess suppose some of this language in the application, somewhere it's talking about the applicant can, a year from now, they can reapply and the temporary permit can be extended. And so I know you talked about wrapping things up by June, but I guess I want to know worst case scenario, this can be extended.
No, this is Greg Thatch. It cannot. The ordinance, the emergency ordinance was adopted, allowed a 1-year permit with the ability to extend for 1 additional year. This permit was extended for 1 additional year in June of 21, and that will expire, and there are no more extensions permitted under the ordinance.
I see. Okay, that helps. I noticed some really nice palm trees on the site, very tall cultural resource kind of thing, potentially, I don't know, probably not, apparently. Is there any assurance or any kind of feeling as to whether those can be preserved, even if it's down the road going to be a parking lot?
I don't think we have gotten to that point I don't know that I can answer your question. You've raised it, and certainly I think we'll consider it. Palm trees generally are not preferred trees. They're not native. They don't provide much shade, and so they're generally not. They're more of a landscape statement than or an architectural statement than the trees that we generally want to shade parking lots, etc. But we'll certainly take a look at it.
These are so tall, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the original, farmers who planted them to say, "Here's my farm," planted them a long time ago, and that, to me, it connotes that association, and I think it's something worth preserving. I'll just generally provide the comment that I am concerned about the noise. I think the fact that it looks like it's something like 100-something feet away from the residences to the east, but it's the current site is 300 feet away, except for this subject property. So here's a question for the applicant. Are you currently, did you say you are currently conducting activity on the parcel sites that we're talking about tonight?
As the temporary permit allows, there is laydown storage of materials.
Okay.
And there is some overflow employee parking.
So it's currently being used for that purpose.
Correct.
Okay. So that is closer to 100-something feet away from the residences to the east.
There are setbacks that
right.
are required.
Right. But with those setbacks, it's still, I want to say 100 feet. Yeah. The reason I definitely feel their pain. The public commenter, I've basically, for the past year or so, I've gone through having a temporary construction site for more than a year right behind my house, and I understand the noise, especially gravel. When you have the heavy equipment rollers that are going over the gravel, it sounds like scraping metal on gravel. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. The trucks backing up, the lights in the middle of the night. But that's within 40 feet of my backyard. In this case, it's more like 100 feet. I'm less concerned about that when it's across the street from French Road, where you have traffic going by all the time anyway. It doesn't help that the public commenter did not say that they put in several calls to code enforcement as opposed to just a letter to Siemens that could have gotten lost for all we know. So I'm very, like I said, I feel their pain, but anyway, I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. This is Stephanie Williams. I have a question. I'd just like to know if you can just speak to just a little bit more about the planning and environmental review. How is that going to, how does that review impact this application?
The application, I guess thinking this through. So the application is filed. There's a request for an entitlement. The environmental impacts of that are reviewed by our environmental staff in a document that's prepared for every project, every discretionary project that is handled by the county. And so there are different types of documents that are prepared based on the project and based on its environmental impacts. And so our staff, as the application is working its way through, is preparing a document to analyze the environmental impacts of the project. And when it gets to its hearing body, that document is part of that record and is provided to the decision body along with the request for the project and the conditions of approval and mitigation measures for the project. And that is taken into consideration when the decision body is making a determination on the request for the application. Now, typically these projects come to, not typically, these projects do come to Cpacs early on in the process and prior to those environmental documents being prepared. And so the Cpac review happens early in the process to get input from the community on the project and get a recommendation about the project's consistency with the community, or get a community compatibility, if you will, determination from the Cpac about the request.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Questions or comments?
Chair Williams, this is Greg from the clerk's office. I understand there may have been some concern whether or not the public was able to access the meeting. I do just want to let the council know that 2 clerk staff have tried to access the meeting, the public access to the meeting, and they did not have any issues. And we do have, I believe, 5 or 6 attendees that are actively listening to our meeting. So the public is able to listen to the meeting this evening. I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is member Erica Hadamio. That was my concern. Thanks for following up on that.
No problem. And just at this point, the only public comment we have received, written or otherwise, was the public comment that was distributed to the board and to the applicant team.
All right, thank you. Are we ready to make a recommendation? Cpac?
Do you just want to clarify that the members of the public are allowed to comment if they choose to?
If they choose to. At the beginning of the meeting, I read the process through which to do so. We do not have any folks that have signed up to make a public comment at this point live in the meeting.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And just to verify again, you said that that we did have members of the clerk of the board that has went in on the public site and were able to gain access, right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, if there are no other questions or comments, would any of the members of the Cpac like to make a motion?
Member Hadamio, I'll make a motion to approve.
So we have a motion on the floor, on the table, to approve. Do we have a second for that motion?
Florida Santana Sanchez, I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If it pleases the chair, I will go ahead and call the roll call for a vote.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Jaramillo?
Aye.
Member Lucy?
Aye.
Member Santana Sanchez?
Aye.
And Chair Williams?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously with members present. If it pleases, If it pleases the chair, I can go ahead and read in item 2.
Yes, please. If you can please read item 2. Thank you.
Okay, item 2 is Stockton and 20th mixed use, located at 4630 Stockton Boulevard, the southwest corner of Stockton Boulevard and 20th Avenue in the South Sacramento community. Request is for a use permit and design review.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Cpac members. My name is Rebecca True, and I am the lead planner with Sacramento County on the Stockton and 20th mixed use project. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This project is located at 4630 Stockton Boulevard, which is on the southwest corner of Stockton and 20th Avenue in the South Sacramento community, and it's also on the north side of the Stockton Boulevard special planning area. Currently, the site is a vacant lot, though it has an existing concrete pad from the previous use. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Hi, this is Greg from the clerk's office yet again. Evening of technical difficulties. Oh, there you go. Sorry. Slide 3 is up.
Thank you, Greg. For the special planning area, the site is zoned limited commercial. The zoning is also limited commercial to the north and south of the site along the west side of Stockton, and further west are low-density residential homes. The east side of Stockton Boulevard is City of Sacramento city limits, and the Colonial Heights Library and parking lot are directly opposite from the project site. Next slide, please. Sacramento County records indicate this site used to have a commercial building that provided furniture upholstery and glass repair services. At some point, there was a fire on site, and the building was demolished in 2011. In recent years, the vacant lot has had a number of code violations due to the presence of junk, rubbish, and transients living on site. Next slide, please. The applicant's request is for a use permit to allow development of a 3-story commercial and residential mixed-use building in the Stockton Boulevard SPA and for a design review to be consistent with countywide design guidelines. Next slide, please. This is the site plan of the building. The project would build off of the existing concrete pad, and it proposes 3 commercial tenants on the frontage along Stockton with 1 ground floor adaptable residential unit, and the 2 upper floors will be additional residential units. There would also be covered gated parking that is accessible from the alley on the north side of the property, and the alley would also be paved up to the driveway as a site improvement. Next slide, please. This is the landscape plan for the project. A key feature is the outdoor community area towards the back of the property on the western side. Next slide, please. On to floor plans. As mentioned earlier, the project has 3 commercial tenants on the ground floor with 1 residential unit. There's also a lobby, a mailroom, an indoor trash and laundry room. Next slide, please. The 2 upper floors are proposed to have 10 residential units, making for 11 residential units in total. The 10 units on the upper floors are all 1 bedroom, 1 bath, whereas the ground floor unit is a 2 bedroom, 1 bath unit. Next slide, please. This slide provides a summary of the key points of this project. Project also went before the Design Review Advisory Committee last month, who found the project to be in substantial compliance with the countywide design guidelines. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions now. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to open it up to Cpac members. Do you have any questions?
Cpac member Santana Sanchez. I don't know if I missed it, but did you say that this was going to be enclosed?
I believe only the parking area is enclosed.
Okay.
Now, what's the permitted use for this building, for this development? Is this just rental?
I think the applicant could speak to that.
Yes, it would be rentals.
We don't have any questions at this time. I'd like to give the applicant an opportunity to kind of speak a little bit more to the project.
Hi, this is Jennifer Munoz, architect on this project. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of back up the planner's summary of the project. This is a pretty small site, and there were a lot of amenities that we had to fit in. So you'll notice that the site is pretty tight in terms of community space, required parking, and then a need to include a mixed-use component on the ground floor with an adaptable unit. We hoped to tie in the kind of existing history of the area and provide a more contemporary aesthetic that ties into that using brick and metal siding, and have really made an effort to create a buffer between the building and the street using landscape that you'll notice on the landscape plan with that. I believe it's 13-foot setback. So that'll provide a really nice buffer to Stockton Boulevard for the residential units and the ground floor tenants as well. The other thing I wanted to clarify is that we are not repurposing the existing concrete slab. It'll need to be rebuilt just because of structural concerns. But that's all I had. Val, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, that's a good description. I think it was mentioned that the parking lot would be gated for access. Alley would be paved, so it would be access in and out. Other than that, no, not really, unless there's any specific questions.
Yes, I do have a question, and around where. So from the Stockton Boulevard, where? How would you enter into the complex here?
That would be through the alley.
And the alley is, and if we can go back, I'm just trying to see where is the alley.
Right there.
And so the alley is accessible. Is that from Stockton Boulevard? This is.
Yes, that's correct.
And is that the only, is that one way in and one way out through the alley?
Yes, that's the only way to get in and out.
Now, in that alley, is that just driveway only? Is there any parking or anything there?
Driveway only. That alley serves a home at the end of the alley, and then people's backyards, accesses out of their backyards down the alley.
Okay. Now, if an emergency vehicle like a fire truck or were coming in, would they be able to access through this alley?
Yes, they would.
Now, I don't recall, just one other question. I don't recall, is any parts of this, is this gated? I didn't see it on the front side of the structure, but on any other parts of this, is this gated?
Just in the driveway area, though, there will be an accessible gate there for tenants.
Okay.
Chair, do you mind? I have a couple questions.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Thanks. I am just like looking at the layout plan right now, and it is a very awkward shape, and so I know you're kind of just working with the sizes, but can you give me an idea of what the price range is going to be on these? And if, I mean, some of them obviously look smaller than others, and I just want to make sure that those are going to be reflected in the square footage, for the units.
So I'm sorry, what's the question?
So some of the units are smaller than others. Like, what can you give us an idea of, like, what is the price range that you're going for on these units?
We don't have that information available. That would be more determined closer to completion of the project. It'll be market rate rentals. Okay.
All of them are going to be market rate?
Yes.
And member Chair Williams brought up some good points that made me kind of think about safety issues in terms of access. So accessing through an alleyway. Are there going to be more lights put in? How is safety going to be ensured if there's only one way in and one way out?
Well, there will be adequate lighting as required by the county in the plan. All safety features will be provided for as required through our design review and process. Anything that's required with police, lighting, that's all taken into account.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
this is Rebecca True with the county, just to follow up on that. We do, as part of the permit process, we do take the application to all of our agencies and departments. So fire, police, water, sewer, air quality, every agency and department that we work with at the county are aware of these plans, and they are able to provide comments and conditions of approval.
Thank you. And if planning staff could maybe speak a little bit more to this. So I know the housing element, is part of the general plan update. How do plans coming forward to us like this impact putting that together? Is it included in your, do you count this as meeting some of the numbers that are being put in that housing element document now, or if you could just kind of explain that for us a little bit.
Yeah, my understanding, Chris can help if I need a little help with this, but my understanding is the numbers that we get from the state are developed and put forward in the housing element plan. And so that is to plan for how many additional units we need built. And then when we do have projects like this, we do count these numbers. So this would be 11 units towards our goal for the year.
Okay, so this would count towards the goal that is that number put into the housing element going forward, right?
That is correct. We have to do an annual report to the state that puts the units that have been produced into the correct income buckets. And the only projects, or the only units that we're able to count at either the very low or low income unit categories are ones that are deed restricted, regulated, affordable, which we do have a number of units that you all have seen recently that are going to fall in those buckets. But for projects that are market rate, they don't fall in those very low or low income buckets, but they still help in the overall production of units. So some may go into a moderate category and some may go into above moderate.
Okay. And Chris, can you confirm what bucket this is going to be going into?
I would assume this would go in above market.
Okay.
I mean, above, yeah, of
Right?
market rate. Yeah.
Market rate.
Okay. And if I could just request for a future meeting in the next couple months that we get an update on those numbers, just because when we have housing and units being built coming forward, it would be good to, at least I would like to personally be able to have an idea in my mind about like how this is impacting our housing, going forward. If we can get an idea about those numbers, that would be awesome. Thank you. No further questions from me.
Thank
This is
you.
Member Lucy. I have questions about the access from the alley on the north side to the trash recycling area. That seems kind of a nexus of trouble, potentially. Can you describe how trash is picked up in that little sub alley?
This is Jennifer, the architect. We've been working with our civil consultant on the trash turnaround, and they've assured us that a truck can pull in and turn around using the driveway. So the plan would be that the trash would be rolled out down the trash driveway there from the trash room in the building, and then picked up, it'd be rolled out when it's being picked up. So it would not be sitting out on the alley.
So it'd be rolled out to just outside the building or to the alley outside?
To the truck at the alley, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no other questions?
This is Member Stephanie Williams. I do have another question. I'm just as I'm looking here, where's the entrance for foot traffic?
For the parking area?
No, so when I'm looking, I see the front part of the structure. I can see how you enter in, and so I'm just wondering. I'm trying to determine on the site plan where, if you're walking up, then how are you entering in? Do you have to come through the alley?
Oh, I see. So there'd be entry for the commercial space on the front facing Stockton Boulevard, and part of, obviously, for a street presence on the commercial tenant spaces, that's important. And primarily the parking would be used for residential use. So we're imagining maybe employees are using the commercial area. Otherwise, some of the parking was offset as there's a nearby street, Baker Street nearby, with plenty of street parking. So primarily commercial access would be from the front, and then residential would be from the parking area at the back where the entry to the residential building is. Anyone coming into the residential building from the front would access through the gate. If you look on the upper portion of the plan, there's a gate there at the bike parking area. So that would be how you'd get in from Stockton Boulevard if you were trying to go into the residential building. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Okay.
Chair
We have,
Williams, I'm sorry. This is Greg from the clerk's office. Well, we had a little lull there. I just wanted to let you know that we do have no public comments written, or we do not have any folks in the queue waiting to speak live in the meeting.
okay, thank you. All right, does that conclude any comments or questions from Cpac?
Member Lucy, no other questions.
Thank you.
Member Jaramillo, no more questions.
Member Santana Sanchez, no other questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, would we like to make a recommendation, a motion?
This is Member Lucy. I move that we recommend approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Member
Was that
Erica.
you? Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'll call the roll. Member Jaramillo?
Aye.
Member Lucy?
Aye.
Member Santana Sanchez?
Aye.
And Chair Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you.
Okay, if it pleases the chair, we can move on to item 3.
Yes, if we can please move to item 3. Thank you.
Item 3, I'll just let you know before I read it. This is an information item only. There'll be no action needed on your part. Item 3 is community input on Sacramento County fiscal year 2022-2023 budget priorities.
So again, this is Chris Bahuli. I'll just do a very quick introduction for this item and then hands it over to the chair to conduct the conversation. The information included in your agenda packet is for or includes a primer, if you will, or an overview of the county's 2021-2022 budget. So it provides a good summary of the roughly $7 billion annual budget for the county and includes where those resources are being invested in for this fiscal year, which began on July 1, 2021 and runs through the end of June 2022. So again, the information in your package really speaks to the budget that has already been approved by the Board of Supervisors. However, the board has, as part of that budget process, has directed the county county staff to begin work for their 2022-2023 budget. And as part of that effort to construct that budget, they have asked for a survey to be completed and for some additional outreach to the community to get input on the budget be performed. And as part of the preparation for that survey, they asked that county staff go to the various boards and commissions, including the Cpacs, to get some input on where you all feel the county's budget priorities or what should be priorities for the county's annual budget. And the input that you provide on priorities will help guide the staff as they're putting together a community survey that will be prepared and will be distributed at some point in the very near future. So again, the point of this conversation is to get some input on where Cpac members feel the county should be prioritizing its resources. The clerk of the board's office is going to be taking notes for this topic and will be transmitting those comments to the county staff that are working on the survey and on the budget. So with that introduction, I will hand it over to the chair to facilitate the discussion and getting input from various council members.
Okay, thank you for that. Gonna take a look here. Just trying to pull up a bigger version of that document. Does anyone have any questions or comments so far from the Cpac?
No questions, Member Jaramillo.
Member Lucy, none at the moment.
Member Santana Sanchez, I have no questions at this time.
Now, will this be our only opportunity to give feedback on the budget?
No, it won't be. Perhaps as a member of the Cpac, it may be. Typically, the county's budget does not get rolled out to the Cpacs. However, as a member of the public, yes, as I mentioned, they'll be doing a survey to be broadly distributed to the community. And then I think on the last page of this handout, there's information about how to become more involved with the county's budget process. So I guess my response is yes and no. As input from the actual from the Cpac, it probably is the extent of the involvement of the Cpac on the budget, but in terms of being able to participate and provide feedback to the county and the supervisors on the budget, no, it's
okay.
Just the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Is there a way to? I'm just looking. I'm trying to find. I just have so many attachments here. I think I will hold my comments for now. All right, so no further comments or questions from Cpac?
Okay, if that is the case, we can move on to item 4.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Item 4 is a staff update.
This is Chris Bahuli. We do not have a staff update.
Okay, we can move on to item 5, council member comments. And Member Jaramillo, I will include in this in my notes for this for council member comments your interest in getting an update on the housing element numbers in the future.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay, item 6 is public comments. We have no public comments for off agenda items, either verbally or written. So that is your last agenda item. We can adjourn on the call of the chair.
All right. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.